Nico Iamaleava just committed to UCLA, meaning Utah's Week 1 matchup with the Bruins just got a whole lot more interesting.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first view and listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If you are listening to this for the first time, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletics Department. Excited to have Andrew Crowley on of the Run and Hoops pod. And Andrew, we got some basketball stuff to talk about, but we got to talk about some news because Utah's Week 1 matchup generally gets more exciting. And I think the biggest reason is there's going to be more eyeballs on it now. This game has more national intrigue now because the Nico story took the college sports landscape by storm. I said earlier this week, I just think it's a dark day for college sports when you have an athlete say, I'm going to choose a couple million. Still, the fact that he decided to do what he did, I thought it was really bad for the sport. But now he's going to be at UCLA, and this game's going to have more intrigue, more eyeballs. This is a huge chance for Utah to make a statement in Week 1 and get a lot of people talking about them early. Like, hey, remember when Utah did this to Nico and UCLA early? I think this is really good for Utah and this Bruins rivalry matchup for Week 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I think, as big a game for them as that Florida game a few years ago on the road in the Swamp. They're going to be in the Rose Bowl. Like you said, a lot of eyeballs on this. People are going to be watching. They're going to be hate watching a little bit.
Yes.
And also, honestly, like a big stage for Devin Dampierre, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a guy that can announce himself on the national stage. A lot of people don't know about him from his time at New Mexico. He's coming in. He's got his offensive coordinator with him. You know, maybe Witt's last ride, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe. And so, you know, Utah has a chance to announce itself once again on a national stage here with a big time opportunity. Not a lot of games in that opening weekend slate that are super compelling. So Utah's going to have an opportunity to get a primetime slot with a lot of eyeballs, either on Fox or ESPN. And, you know, sky's the limit.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the potential of that in a moment, but first I'll just say this. Does this move make UCLA better? I believe it does. I do not think Nico was worth $4 million, what a top 5 quarterback is in the country, but I would have Nico probably in the top 20 quarterbacks, maybe top 30. Curious what you guys think in the comments, but look, he still helped this Tennessee team get to the playoffs as a true freshman. That is, you see a lot of leaps freshman to sophomore year. Talk about it all the time. Think about what Spencer Fodor did freshman to sophomore year. Like that, you see leaps there. Nico did a lot of positive things for the Volunteers last year. And by the time that game rolls around in August, this will have been well behind him. That's well over a few months out. So last year, UCLA's offense did rank 95th in yards per play, but the offensive coordinator they're bringing in was the quarterback coach at Indiana. So that's a big addition when you look at what the Hoosiers were able to do last year too. Also, the Bruins did go 5-7 last year, but they closed with 4 wins in their final 6 games. It feels like this UCLA team is improving, and Nico's addition is going to make them better. So I do believe UCLA gets tougher with this move. They did bring in a transfer earlier from App State, Joey Aguilar, who was good for App State, but this is another level, and I do think Nico will be the guy there. So yeah, I do believe the Bruins got better too.
Well, and with the spring transfer window just opening, right? Like, and this is the first piece that shows up in Westwood. You got to think that some of these other guys that are entering the portal in that spring transfer window are looking at UCLA now as an opportunity to go play with an elite quarterback and play on a big stage.
Yeah, and it's a massive stage. The Rose Bowl, Big Ten football, UCLA football. This is the kind of move, the star power, the drama that could propel UCLA closer to being back. Because I think this year will be still a year where the Bruins are trying to figure things out. I expect them to get to bowl eligibility this year, and they're looking at that Week 1 matchup with Utah because the Big Ten's a gauntlet. So that's a big one for them too, getting this Utah team at home with all their new pieces. It's going to be incredibly fun. And Andrew, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but this matchup does have intrigue to me because it is Nico's first game. This is one of the biggest storylines of the offseason. So does this have a chance to get game day? I'll go no, and you can bring up a number of those games in a moment, but Ohio State, Texas being the key one. I think that will. But this does get a major like ESPN slot to me, and I think it becomes one of the 5 most intriguing games on the opening weekend.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we talked a little bit about the opening slate before we started recording. You've got Alabama at FSU, LSU at Clemson, and Texas at Ohio State. Those are really the 3 games that you would put ahead of this one in terms of intrigue and interest on that opening Saturday of college football. But after that, it's Utah, UCLA. And, from a program standpoint for the Utes, after, coming off of the down year, UCLA coming off of a down year, you're going to have these ESPN guys or these Fox guys in town building up to this game for weeks. Once the practice starts in earnest in August, this is going to be a big time focal point of the lead up to the college football season.
We care about this game immensely in Utah because it's our team, but nationally, this just got so much more pulp to it. They're going to talk about this game on game day. I can already see Reese Davis, who recently announced he's going to be staying with ESPN with his new contract, can say it on college game day, right? Like Utah versus UCLA, Nico's first game. Who are you guys going to pick? Like, I think that's the level that we're going to see in this. Was it probably going to be that? I do think they were going to pick it still, but it just gets so much more national excitement because, Andrew, what you brought up earlier is absolutely true. There are a lot of people that want to see Nico fail for what he did for college athletics. And because I do think it's bad what he did for college athletics, I'm not rooting for him to fail. But when you see a guy make a move like this, especially with how frustrated the general fan base that is college football with the NIL scenario going on, I feel like there's a lot of people that are going to be watching, hoping for his downfall.
Oh yeah, we love to build people up and then we love to tear them down. It's just sort of the nature of sport and the nature of the, kind of society that we're in right now. This kid was a, rising star last year, had some big time performances, really put himself on the map. And now here in the offseason, he's put himself on the map in a little bit of a negative way. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of negative attention. But I mean, how much more red is going to be in that Rose Bowl now with more eyeballs, on that game? And we know that UCLA has struggled in the past to fill up that stadium. So
yes,
could be a home field advantage for the Utes, for the Utes, come August.
We're going to talk about the Running Utes in a moment, but I do just want to say, closing out our football discussion here, when you're looking at this Rose Bowl game, I want Utah to get a win in the Rose Bowl again. They've beaten the Bruins there before, but they lost the last time they went out there with Cam Rising. And of course, they lost to Rose Bowl itself. So it'll be great for Utah to get a win there. I expect a good crowd for Utah to show up. And if you're going to be playing this UCLA team with Nico, I actually like that it's week 1 for Utah. I think Nico and this Bruins offense will be better by the time the season ends. Now, you could say the same thing about Devin Dampier, right? But this Utah defense has a lot of returning pieces. We know how consistently good they are. I still like Utah in this matchup early, even though I do think the Bruins got better.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? Like Utah's probably got fewer questions going into this game. And to your point, it's a, kind of a brand new offense for Nico to be going into. Devin Dampierre's, going to have the entire spring, the entire summer, and he's, got Jason Beck that he's been working with already. So I do think there's a little bit of an advantage there. Plus there's a lot of tape out there on Nico, and it's not hard to find because he played at Tennessee, right? Versus, the New Mexico tape coming out of the Mountain West. So yeah, I'd give Utah a slight edge in that one.
Yeah, it's tough to win on the road. That's the other thing we still got to keep in mind. Even if it's not your typical road environment, still tough to win on the road. And you mentioned new offense. That was apparently one of the other reasons. It's not just NIL. There was that whole thing about him wanting an offense that fits his skill set and style. So this game, we're fired up we're Utah Utes fans. But now it gets even more intriguing from a national landscape, and that is great for Utah. Speaking of things that are great for Utah basketball is making major moves right now, and they just got a huge commit in the transfer portal, arguably their best yet. We're going to tell you all about it in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. It is so hard to keep everything straight right now going on. And that's where Upwork comes in and can help you by giving you access to the experts you need to help you out. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting you with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent. If you need help with marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. So it's that fast and easy hiring. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates you can choose from. So also that cost-effective growth. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale my business effectively. Visit Upwork.com right now to post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com-Upwork.com to connect with the top talent and grow your business today at Upwork.com. Head over to connect with the top talent today. All right, Andrew, coming back in here. Andrew, Utah basketball got a big commit. This actually just dropped like right before we were going to record, so I obviously did a big fist bump to that we weren't going to miss this news. And it is in that Elijah Moore has committed to Utah. Syracuse transfer guard, 6'4", former 4-star recruit who did have a 24-point game against Tennessee earlier in the season. Joe Tipton of On3 reports, as well as the other Utah insiders get into this too. But this is a massive get for Utah. A former 4-star coming over and a guy with immense potential with this Utah squad, Andrew.
Yeah, great piece to add to the backcourt. You know, guy that's played at the high level, played in the ACC at Syracuse, had some big games. You mentioned the 24-point outing against Tennessee, had 16 against Maryland. You know, his season average ends up at about 5 points per game. Maybe hit a freshman wall there a little bit, but I think oozes potential and is a guy that, you know, Alex and Coach Chili is looking to add to this team. Good athletes, young players, high potential, high ceiling. Love this addition for the Running Utes.
It feels like a really good one. And to get a player from a program like Syracuse is still something that is really good to get a high-level recruit like that. I know Utah got Miro Little from Baylor last year too, but this just a former 4-star talent, like did have a big game at the collegiate level versus Little was a little bit more of a gamble. This feels like I'm more confident in this. Definitely still questions, and that's where it's nice that Utah gets a balance, right? We've talked a lot about Terrence Brown, the Fairleigh Dickinson transfer coming to Utah. That's a proven 20-point per game score. Is he going to score 20 at Utah? Probably not. That's a big jump he's going to make, but you got a guy who's proven to do it at the college level, and then you also have a recruit now that you're bringing on that had moments last year as a true freshman, and you expect to get even better. I like how Alex Jensen is building this roster out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just those two guys, right, that 1-2 punch in your backcourt of Moore and Terrence Brown Jr., I think gives you a lot to really build off of, especially with a guy like Keanu Dawes in your front court and some of the other guys that we'll talk about. But yeah, I mean, look, we want guys that can score, that can get downhill, that can get to the basket, that can get you a bucket when you need it. It's something that Utah has sorely missed. I think that this guy gets you that. I think Terrence Brown gets you that. And obviously still plenty more roster spots for them to fill out and for them to add more bucket getters here in the offseason.
There is plenty of more room for them to add more guys, Elijah Moore being one of the biggest they've gotten so far. Another one that I'm still really excited about is James Okonkwo. He averaged 6.9 points per game, 7.2 rebounds last year with Akron. I like that size, 6'8", 240. Look, I know it's MAC to now Big 12, but he was on an NCAA tournament team. That's what Utah's trying to do here. I think Okonkwo is immense upside, and I really like this get for Utah.
Yeah, I don't think it matters when, you know, what level you're playing at when you're playing in championship level games. And Akron went out and won the MAC. You know, it's not easy to go win your conference. We know that. You know, Utah's been in the WAC and the Mountain West and the Pac-12 and now the Big 12. It's not easy to win.
Utah ain't won a conference in a while either.
Right.
Utah ain't won in a while.
That's right. And so bringing in a guy like Okonkwo that's got some of that championship experience, he's a guy that, you know, when you look at his numbers, you know, they don't jump off the page at you, but he averaged, I think, 7 rebounds per game for the Zip. And, you know, he's one of these guys that's going to be a, you know, eat what you kill type of performer, I think, for Utah. Everything he's going to get is going to be in the paint, on the offensive glass. And if he can create extra possessions for Utah with his rebounding, that's what they're going to need him to do. High energy guy, deep experience, right? Like he's going to be a guy that they're going to really rely on.
Definitely a guy that this Utah team is going to be relying on moving forward. And one thing that is also really exciting for this Utah squad is that they have another guy that they landed today. Moore wasn't the only one. They also landed a commit in Kendall Saunders is coming over, the IMG Academy star, guy who averaged in double figures last year, also over 8 boards a game too, a 3-star talent, the 59th ranked small forward, the 24th ranked player out of the state of Florida coming over. Yes, Utah was his best offer, but this is a guy who has immense upside to me. And I do think Andrew is a guy who could make an impact right away for this Utah team when you look at his length.
Yeah, I wouldn't sleep on the San Francisco offer that he has. I mean, San Francisco has had a bunch of talented teams with some unheralded guys, over the last several seasons. You look at his tape, right? I mean, it's high school ball, so you don't totally know the competition level and all that stuff, but he's a guy that can finish through contact, which is something that Utah sorely needs. And frankly, Utah needs young guys that they can really start to develop and build through this program. Alex Jensen's a player development guy. Eric Daniels is a player development guy. Coach Chill, same thing. And so you love seeing some of these guys that are going to come in and have immediate impact, but also some of these guys that you can bring in, develop, and really have peaking at the end of the season. I think that Sanders is a guy that can do that.
Yeah, 6'6" wing too. I felt like this Utah team needed to upgrade their wing defense a season ago, and on paper, we expect Saunders to be able to do that too. So, Andrew, is there any addition we haven't hit on yet? I think we covered them all, but is there, or just another addition and player you're eyeing that you want Utah men's basketball to land in the portal?
Well, I think not in the portal, but they did get a visit over the weekend. Was well documented from Kelvin Oda, the 4-star top 75 guy out of Providence, Providence, Rhode Island, that is, not Providence, the school, that has connections to Coach Chill. He's visiting Maryland after visiting Utah. So you don't love that Buzz Williams gets that last visit because he's a very good salesman. But this is a guy that I think would be a program changer from a perception point of view, right? Again, bringing in a top 75 guy, big wing, guy that can really, elevate the program from a optics perspective, but also on the floor. Kelvin Oda is a guy I've got my eye on.
And the men's basketball team isn't the only one that's making additions too. The women's basketball team has also been able to add a player. Utah got a commit from Cameron Maffa. What do you think she's going to bring to this team? And what do you think of what Utah's done so far in the women's basketball portal, Andrew?
Yeah, this is a really interesting prospect because she was ranked, I think, 54 or 56 in the ESPN 100 for women's basketball in 2024, went to Cal Berkeley out of high school, but that ranking puts her ahead of Brooke Walker, who is on the Utes team. She was number 70, and Delaney Gibb, who lit it up for BYU. So it's the talent is certainly there. Maybe the opportunity wasn't there at Cal. So I like this addition for them. We may see a familiar face returning to the program here in the next couple of days, not Gianna Neepkins, but a familiar face nonetheless. And, look, Gavin Peterson's got plenty of spots to fill, and the portal is certainly going to be a big part of what he does here in the offseason.
Both basketball teams are staying busy adding the portal. You already mentioned Neepkins isn't going to be returned. Unfortunately, another Utah basketball player is also not going to be returning, and one they would love to get back. Who are we talking about? We're going to tell you in one moment. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are here. We just wrapped up the first couple of playing games, and we have a couple more coming up on Friday. And the NBA playoffs are right around the corner, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into same game parlay for a chance to win. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Which playoff storyline do you have your eyes on? Can the New York Knicks get through the Detroit Pistons? Detroit's been one of the top turnarounds this year. How about the Dallas Mavericks? What's going to end up happening with them? There's been so much drama there, obviously. What are we going to see from Steph Curry as the Warriors are going to be going against the Rockets? Can this young Houston team somehow do something there? How about the Nuggets? Just fire Michael Malone. Now they're going to try to figure it out. A lot of action going on ahead of the playoffs. Make sure you head over to FanDuel to get in on the action today. Andrew, Jake Wahlin was a guy that Utah was very hopeful to get to keep when he hit the portal. And it was a guy who said, hey, like when he first entered the portal, wanted to play in the Crown, but was going to stay in the portal. So Utah, obviously he heard Utah out on their offer, but decided that Clemson was his new home. The 6'4" forward ended up going, the 6'4" forward from Provo ended up staying away from Provo and ended up joining Clemson. This is a loss for Utah. Wahlin was a really productive player. I felt like a guy who was only improving and getting better too. Is a guy they clearly wanted back. So this hurts. I don't think it's like a catastrophic loss. Like Utah can't recover next season, but definitely a hurt to lose Wahlin.
Yeah, I mean, when you looked at the roster to start the offseason, Jake was one of, 2 or 3 guys that you really wanted to see Utah retain. I think that the way that the season ended for this team with Craig Smith being removed in the manner that he was removed, I think that made it really hard for these guys, this new staff to retain any of these players. I think it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. Just again, the way it was handled, candidly. Jake goes to Clemson, and he's going to get to face Dallin Hall at University of Virginia. But yeah, Jake's a guy that we would have loved to have seen back. Guy with a high ceiling, I think, and a guy that improved really throughout the year. And so Clemson's definitely getting a good player there in Jake Wahlin.
It feels like they definitely are. And Andrew, I always get a good guest when you make time to come on. So thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. And please let everyone know where they can find the Runnin' Hoops pod at.
Yeah, at Runnin' Hoops over on the socials. We got a new logo for everybody to check out. A little bit fancier, a little bit crisper.
Looks fun.
Felt like we needed to do that, here in year 4. And wherever you get a podcast, at Runnin' Hoops, we'll be covering the Utes all off season. And as we've seen already, there's plenty to cover there. So
there is plenty to cover. It's busy off season. I like that Utah's adding more early, it feels like, than they did last year in the portal too. Shows the overall better NIL investment, it appears. So good things going for Utah. And Andrew, once again, thanks for hopping on, my friend.
Absolutely.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow, getting you all prepped for the spring game and also talking about what Kyle Whittingham said Utah will be looking for in the transfer portal. Hope you will join us then. And also, do not forget that coming up, we have the NFL draft next week. And with the NFL draft right around the corner, you can make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. That's going to do it for our show. We hope to see you again tomorrow.